A block that builds is a block that bears the weight of others. A block that builds is a block that bears the weight of others. Are you connected to people? Do you have spiritual community? Do you have the people in your life that lift you higher, that take you to places that you never thought you would ever be, that stretch you, that challenge you? Do you have those types of people in your life? Because if you do, you're on this side of the coin, and you're a part of building something. If you're using what God has given you, you're carrying the weight. If you look at these blocks are all connected. They're touching each other. They carry the weight of each other. They're connected to each other. They bear under the weight of others. Galatians says it's the law of Christ to bear each other's burdens. And actually, I believe it touches the heart of Jesus when you actually carry the weight of somebody else in your life. Pray for them. You care about them. You think about them. You carry their burden. You want to be a support to help lift the burden. You want to be there for them when they're struggling. I want to ask you the question, what do you feel like you're bearing under right now? Because if you bear under something, you are probably building something. If you're carrying something, a weight on your shoulders, you're probably a part of building something. I remember when Michelle had her surgery a few years ago now, and it was like a core type of a surgery, and so she had to kind of learn how to walk again the first 2 days because she was all off balance. I remember having to help her get up. She had to find her balance, and I had to literally hold her up in the beginning to help her find her walk again. That's kind of what it's like when we're carrying each other's burdens. We're helping them learn how to walk. We're helping them learn how to get better. And that's what happens when you're connected to a spiritual community of people. Are you with me this morning? Our abilities being stewarded and utilized to build and advance the kingdom of God is somebody else's strength and somebody else's support. A block that builds, write this down, is a block that blocks. Write that down. A block that builds is a block that blocks. If you're a part of building the kingdom with your life, and you're filling all the gaps. You see, if I put this block back here, all of a sudden now I block that hole. I block that hole. You ever had to block somebody on Instagram or on social media? Anybody? Nobody? No. I've had to block a few people. I actually have this individual that keeps designing new names and new social media tags, and then follows me and then trash talks me on social media. So I just keep hitting block. So I don't know how many names he's going to try, but eventually I think he's going to get the revelation. But you see, I want to be a block that blocks and protects the sanity of my spiritual house. I don't want to let my weakness create an opening for any vulnerability in my life. How about you? But you know what happens is when you don't play your part in the body, that hole stays there. You know, and we often wonder why things aren't going the way that they could or should, and we wonder why the church isn't doing more, and the world isn't noticing the church is doing more, and we're not seeing the kingdom advance like they should, is because we have a big pile of blocks that looks like this in the body of Christ. Dysfunctional, disheveled, and disconnected. Once upon a time, they might have been here because, you know what? They filled these holes, and they were a part of the bigger picture, and it was awesome. And they were doing amazing things. And look, and there was a strength in the house of God. There was a strength in this Jenga set. There was a strength, and it was actually intimidating to look at this thing. How are we going to pull this thing over? There's not that many holes. And the more holes that are filled, the more souls that are reached. I see it in the business community. I've had a lot of conversations with business guys over the years. And one of the things that they always talk to me about and tell me is like, Sean, you know, the church needs bigger vision. The church needs bigger vision. I absolutely believe that. Absolutely, we need to have bigger vision. 100% we need to have bigger vision. But I also, in those conversations, the majority of those conversations that I've had are with business people that are disconnected from playing their role in the body. They wonder why things aren't happening the way that they should. It's because, see, they've created these holes and these chasms, and the very chasms that they have created, they actually are acknowledging without even realizing it. And I'm not just picking on people in the business world, I'm picking on everybody right now. All of us in this room have a part to play. All of us in this room have a part to play in the bigger picture of what we call the kingdom. Are you with me? So blocks that build are blocks that block, protect. Very important we understand that. Write this down. Blocks that build are blocks that bless. Man, do you understand how much of a blessing it is to be this block right here? To be on top? These blocks that have played their role, played their part, are strong in spirit, have made way for these guys on top just to be strong, to be blessed. When every block plays their role, every other block feels a sense of strength and blessing as a result. 1 Peter 4 verse 10 says this, just as each one of you has received a special gift, a spiritual talent, an ability graciously given by God, employ it in serving one another as is appropriate for good stewards of God's multifaceted grace. Did you hear that? I love that. Did you hear that? If you've received a special, everybody in this room has a special part to play. It may mean prayer. It may mean financially. It may mean, being playing a specific role on a specific team. Everybody has a part to play in this thing we call the kingdom. And when they play that part, what ends up happening is they end up serving one another. Employ it in serving one another as is appropriate for good stewards of God's multifaceted grace. You're hearing this today. In the context to where we're at as a mobile church, we have different teams. We have hosting, we have parking, we have music, we have kids, media. There's so many different elements of the house that go into creating a space to do what we do each week. And without a team playing their part, we wouldn't have any part at all in the kingdom. When it comes to gathering like this, we wouldn't be able to do what we do if people didn't play their part. But imagine what we could do if everybody began to play their part. Imagine what we could do if you could acknowledge that, man, God's given me these things. God's given me these graces. And so when I am functioning by these graces, I am actually not only fulfilling God's dream, I'm actually coming to a greater sense of fulfillment myself, and I'm growing up into the person that I'm called to be. See, the devil can't create holes unless we let him create holes. Number two, write this down. Number two, a block that has broken away. This is the next pile. This is the blocks that build, and these are the blocks that have broken away. There's hope for these blocks, but we all go through times, don't we, where we struggle and we get hurt. We go through pain. We're tired, whatever, and so we feel sometimes it's just easier to get off of the Jenga train, to get out of, sort of get disconnected. But what ends up happening is we end up getting connected to all the people that are disconnected. You see that pile right there? They're all connected. You see everybody up here? These people are all connected on mission. These people over here are also connected on mission. They just don't know their mission. It's a mission disconnected. But like attracts like, you'd be surprised. You watch, the people that are often the closest in life are the ones that have a very similar mission. The people that are closest have the same mission. But what ends up happening is it may go good for a while, and you may be here and functioning, but something happens. You get offended. You're on the parking team, and some guy comes in and gets really mad at you, and so slowly you get a little disjointed. You kind of begin to look like this, and then you complain up here to one of the other team members who's on the host team, and somebody didn't want to be seated where the host team wanted to seat them, so they get a little disheveled, and then things start to move around a little bit. Now, what's about to happen is, because of all the things that are going on, not handled properly, eventually these blocks just kind of fall away and form a new pile. Now, Jesus still loves these blocks, and they're still part of the body. They're just disconnected right now, not functioning the way that they should. And when they don't function the way that they should, they're missing a part. They're missing out on the strength that comes with the influence that the kingdom is established on through his church. Are you hearing me? It says 1 Corinthians chapter 12, verse 14, says it like this. I want you to think about how all this makes you more significant, not less. It says a body isn't just a single part blown up into something huge. It's all the different but similar parts arranged and functioning together. We are not destined to be broken away from the body functioning as blocks that make up something that advances the kingdom. We're not destined to be that other pile. That's why I said I feel like at some level Jenga is the devil's game, because the devil is trying to make this thing fall over. Let's just get as many people screwed up as possible, disconnected as possible, because eventually this whole thing will topple over. And Jesus said, I'm not coming back until I have like a spotless, blameless bride. Like, I'm coming back for a church that's strong. I'm coming back for a church that's strong, a Jenga tower that's not going to be moved, with no holes, so that every soul, no soul is missed because there is no hole. I love it because there was an article that I heard about by a neuroscientist out of Northwestern University, and he studied decision-making habits over a decade. And he in his research found that when two people got together, their brain waves began to look almost identical. So when two people started to hang out together, so they start hanging out. That's why, what's that saying called? The flock of the same feather flocks together, or something like that. I don't know. I missed that. Birds of a feather flock together, or something. Whatever. Okay. So, when you start hanging out with certain individuals, eventually your brain waves begin to link. This is what his research showed. And that's why some of your behavioral patterns begin to change. That's why the way that you live, the way that you think, all of a sudden, he says this in his research, your approach to reality all of a sudden begins to change. Think about it. Think about it in times, in seasons in your life when things were really good. You probably had a really solid good group of on-purpose friends that were going somewhere. And then think about when things got a little bit shady, a little bit rocky, you probably went to people that were probably like what you were going through. It's just, you don't even realize you do it. It's like you're magnetized to it. It's like, we all have ebbs and flows of that in our life. We're not doing good, and so we want to be around situations and environments that allow us to not do good. You know what I'm talking about? And then when we're doing good, we want to be around environments where we could even do better. It's just the nature of humanity. That's why at Christmas time, there's more people that struggle with depression and isolation than any other season during the year. Because it's a reminder of how much of a horrible family situation that many people have, and so they just want to isolate, to just kind of ignore, because it's easier just to wallow than it is to actually go out and be reminded about how much your family sucks because you don't have a family. You get what I'm saying? It's easier that way. I love it, though. So his research found this, and when they're in a room together, their brainwaves begin to align. And he says this, the people you hang out with have an impact on your engagement with reality beyond what you can explain. And it begins to affect what you become like. So his conclusion in his research was this, is if people want to maximize happiness and minimize stress, build a life that requires fewer decisions by surrounding yourselves with people that embody the traits that you prefer. So don't fall back into the people that are also disconnected and disheveled and hurt. Don't fall back there. Be where you need to be so you can help these that are struggling. Think about your friends group right now, the ones you hang out with the most. And think about the decisions that you're probably about to make right now in your life. I wonder if you're about to make decisions right now in your life that are a reflection of decisions that the people that you're hanging out with have already made. And you're like the block over here, you're climbing, you're seeing it, it's kind of enticing over here. Look, they're all having a gossip party over here. Woo, this is fun. Everything sucks. Gossip party. This is really intriguing. I'm tired anyway, so This was like, wait, where'd you go, buddy? Where'd you go? Where'd you go? Oh, don't leave me. Please don't leave me. What? I don't want to be alone. I'm isolated up here. I don't want to be like this. And this is what happens, though. This is how the enemy works, you guys. We begin to be drawn to the very thing that we don't actually need to do what we're called to do. Hang around people that are taking you higher, that have the same purpose as you. When you're around people that are giving themselves to something that is not themselves, all of a sudden you begin to do the same, because both selflessness and self-centeredness are both contagious. Selflessness and self-centeredness are both contagious. It's like in poker, when you have the right cards together, you win. When the right blocks are together, you're going to win. You're going to win. I don't know about you, but that doesn't look very attractive to me. Does it look attractive to you? It's a campfire. Yeah, it's a little bit of a campfire. It's not very attractive to me. I want to read some testimonies here of some people in this house that are part of this house, functioning in this house. How their functioning in this house has changed their lives, the trajectory of their marriage, their future. One testimony, and I've scaled them down a little bit just for time's sake. One testimony reads like, in the summer of 2016, our family was going through one of its most difficult seasons. A few months prior, we had been told that I had miscarried our child. We spent a month grieving a baby, and it caused me to come into a terrible relapse of postpartum depression and anxiety. We came to learn, though, after that month, that the baby was still alive. The miscarriage was a misdiagnosis, but the depression and anxiety were still very real. I couldn't work. I was trying so hard to keep it together. We were looking for a church to call home because we wanted somewhere to be connected. We had been to a few and felt no clarity at all. I remember one summer day where I sort of gave God an ultimatum. Either he show us the place or I was done. I don't think we would have been done, but he is so good. And it also meant a lot to me that it was somewhere where worship mattered, spirit mattered, and the supernatural mattered. So we attended KC service at the RA Center, which was like one of the days that wasn't a good, memorable day for me. I think we were there once. They came to the RA Center that day, and after church, someone invited me onto the team. Both my husband and I are now involved on the team, even with 3 young kids. My depression and anxiety are gone. I believe God used connection and community to heal me. We were just so in love with the KC vision. I was telling people recently how all I've ever seen at KC are miraculous stories of redemption in marriages, which is so true. I see this all the time. Finances, health, it's just amazing. Another testimony reads like this: without the help and support of our church family, we would not be where we are at right now. It's another couple in the church. Last December 2016, we stepped out in faith and prayed for the impossibilities we were believing for in 2017. That was part of our House of Hearts series last December. We prayed for a home of our own. Subsequently, Pastor Sean prayed and prophesied over us that we will be facing a huge test in our relationship. This test will lead us to some inheritance. He said that God kept telling him the number 10, but wasn't exactly sure what it meant. We left that day hopeful yet puzzled, at the same time excited for what was to come. Little did we know that relationship test was the hardest battle we had for our marriage. Many things happened. Our marriage was put on a huge test. We didn't even know whether the marriage would go on. Through the help of many church families, their support and counseling, our marriage managed to make a positive turn. Many wonderful miracles started happening exactly after 10 months. We got back together after our separation, and we had a wonderful gift from God. We were blessed with a beautiful home in downtown Ottawa, given to them. It is more than we could ever ask for and dream for, and we thank God for these miracles. Today, we are happily married, finally living in our own home. Our marriage would not be what it is today without our church family. Serving on a KC team has helped us find a place that we can call home, and it's one of the most amazing things that has happened in our lives. I love that. You should clap for that. It's awesome. See, these are examples of people that were disconnected, that found their hole. and got plugged in. Found their all, and now all of a sudden, the strength of the blocks underneath it, on top of it, gave them support that they needed. And now all of a sudden, guess what? These blocks that were once disconnected now begin to look like these blocks. You begin to look like you begin to hang around with. You hang around successful people, you'll be successful. You hang around healed marriages, you'll have a healed marriage. You hang around people that are doing good things in life, and that will be reflective in the things that you do in life. One more story I want to read to you. Being on a team has got my marriage through some of the greatest trials. When I was struggling, the KC community built me up, prayed for me, and believed with me for a miracle. Our teams chased after us faithfully, helping us to pull out of our dark time and changed the trajectory of our marriage. They believed for restoration for us, and it made a difference. I never thought a group of people could care so much, could demonstrate the reckless love of God in such a real way. I am eternally grateful for them and to be a part of a team that exemplifies what it truly means to live a Jesus-filled life. See the power of when you're disconnected and get connected. You know how many celebrities that you listen to today that started here in the church? Whitney Houston, Avril Lavigne. You know Brad Pitt started in the church? Good old Baptist boy, singing in the choir, got connected. You know that? Jessica Simpson, Britney Spears. So many people had an experience, and as a result, it so developed them that now they are influencing the world. Now, not always in the best way, but they're influencing the world. And they were built up while they were a part of building this up. That's what happens. When you're a block that builds, you are a block that gets built yourself. When you are a block that's disconnected, you are a block that stays disconnected until you come back to your rightful place and play the role that God has called you to play. Number 3, if you look at that last pile over there, yes, we have blocks that build, blocks that are broken away, and then we have the third pile, which is a block that belongs but does not believe. Write that down. This may be you. You belong, but you just don't know where you're at and what you believe about God, the church, Jesus. You just don't know what you believe, but you're a block. And I heard this powerful podcast, like probably the most powerful interview I've ever heard in my entire life. I was in tears at least 3 times during the interview. And just an hour and 45 minutes of just like incredible substance. And one of the things this individual said in the podcast that really hit me, and I shared it at our Vision Night on Wednesday, he said, you know what? God has never made a table or a chair in his life. God has never made a chair or a table in his life. He only makes trees. And then he gives us the responsibility to look at that tree and imagine what it could be. Blew my mind. Just the way that he said it, it was just like, this is the God that we serve. We're called to create alongside of him. We're called to innovate alongside of him. We're praying for, God, just give me this, God, give me this. But God's like, no. I want you to take the raw material that I've already given you and turn it into something great. Imagine what this log could be. And looking at this log, see, God looks at this log and says, you know, whether or not you believe or not is irrelevant right now. You belong here. And my vision, I can imagine this log one day becoming this refined block that builds something bigger than itself. That is a part of something bigger than itself. God looks at this log and says, man, you know what? Give me some years, give me some time, give me some weeks, and I'll cut this thing down. I'll sand it down. I'll remove the bark, the rough edges, and I'll get you connected to something that's going to change the trajectory of your life. Maybe this is you today. Maybe somehow you feel like you were here and you're back there. And the enemy has so lied to you and said, you're just nothing. You're not even disconnected. You're not even like, you don't even know what you believe anymore. But let me just tell you this, you still belong. God still knows your destination. This is your destination. I'm excited for the next series coming up because I'm going to expand on this a little bit, because this is how you change the world. There are things that you will develop here that you will develop nowhere else. There are things that you will learn here, being a part of God's house, advancing. That's why David, the greatest king that ever lived, ruled over Israel, said, I would rather be a doorkeeper in the house of my God than anything else. There's something that I get from that I get nowhere else. In fact, my success out there only comes when I understand my service here. It only comes when I understand my service here. But God looks at that and he's like, he gets excited about that. You're not too far from here. You're not too far. When he sees that, he sees a block. Imagine when you look at this, imagine a city that's changed in such a powerful way that the government, the organizations in our city come to the church for financial help. I'm not looking at this. So God looks at this. These are the raw materials. It says, like, I so want to build this. But when I look at this, I see a city changing. I see something so big, something so impactful in the city of Ottawa. But I got to get you to go through a process to get here. I got to get you to begin to believe in yourself that you really belong even before you believe. I got to get you to a place where you can also see it. Because God looks at that and he has a dream for it. His dream is to build you into the house of God, to make you a part of something incredible. David and Solomon both had this heart to build an incredible house. It says in 2 Chronicles 2, verse 5, it says this, the house I am building, speaking of the temple, has to be the best. For our God is the best. You guys, why is it that we think we can give God our second best to the very thing that he established to change the world with? Like when there's a hole here, we are making a statement that we are giving God our second best. That it's more important for me to feel good over here than to help the whole picture fulfill its purpose. Being over here is like giving God our second best. Being here, knowing who you are, what role you play, is giving God your best. Because we're called to build this thing so high because God wants to make you the best representation of him in the earth. I think every one of these identifies one type of individual in this room. And I think God wants to shift some mindsets today. Because some of you have become that pile. Some of you are on that pile. Some of you are here, but maybe you're teetering. And some of you, maybe you're seeing these holes, and you're a part of this pile right here. You're just waiting to jump into the hole. You're just waiting to jump in. Maybe you're waiting for someone to invite you in. You're ready. You're ready. You know your spot's on top. You know your spot's up here. And as you begin to play your role begins to strengthen every other role on this Jenga set. The enemy is going to have no ability to take this thing down if it's strong with no holes. No holes means no soul left untouched.